NRx Pharmaceuticals draws upon decades of collective scientific and drug development experience to address very high unmet needs of patients and to bring improved health to those patients as well. So with me is Dr. Jonathan Javitt, the founder, director, and chief scientific officer of NRx Pharmaceuticals. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
Just give me an overview of NRx.
So we're a small biotech company, really the first company that organized around tackling suicidal depression. The CDC has said that 3.4 million Americans every year really make a plan to kill themselves, have active suicidal ideation, and yet the only FDA-approved treatment for suicidal ideation to this day is electroshock therapy. And we decided to do something about that based on science that my brother Dan Javitt had started in 1987, a new receptor in the brain that was previously undiscovered called the NMDA receptor, where powerful NMDA antagonists such as ketamine turn off thoughts of suicide within a couple of hours. You know, people wouldn't imagine that that's possible, and yet we see it over and over again. I saw it just 2 weeks ago with a senior biotechnology executive.
Amazing, and an important issue, and it's interesting that people really aren't working on that. What was your background and led you to be a founder of this company?
So I'm a physician scientist. Johns Hopkins still calls me a professor of ophthalmology. That was my original medical discipline. I worked in global health, served 4 presidents of the United States, and been involved in drug development over the years. And in this case, I saw the science come along at the same time as all of the major pharmaceutical companies abandoned psychiatry. So all of the companies that developed the generation of SSRI antidepressants that everybody knows about have left the field. And none of the major pharmaceutical companies were willing to get into this new field of NMDA-targeted antidepressants. So we did.
Why do you think the big pharma companies abandoned that?
Well, a whole generation of antidepressants lost their patent status, and that's always an invitation for big pharma to leave. But more importantly, it became recognized that all the common antidepressants on the market today cause suicide. The FDA has now put a black box warning on every one of them. And that's why we were so focused on working to bring the first NMDA-targeted antidepressant to the market that would be shown to decrease the risk of suicide.
Okay, so let's talk about that treatment. So this is a ketamine-based?
Well, ketamine is a very potent NMDA antagonist drug, and it has its uses. The problem is, I mean, while it works, as I said, within an hour or two, ketamine is hallucinogenic, it's highly addictive, it's neurotoxic and kills brain cells, and it can't be given by mouth. So it's magic for someone who has acute thoughts of suicide where the alternative is hospitalization, electroshock therapy. But as a chronic home use drug, ketamine really has no role. So we've been developing a drug that we call NRx-101, which is based around a molecule called D-cycloserine that modulates the NMDA receptor, more like turning a dimmer instead of flipping a switch. And our phase 2 results were sufficient for FDA to give us breakthrough therapy designation and to encourage us to bring it forward to the clinic in the hopes of making it an approved drug. So we're working with 2 different drugs, one ketamine for acute suicidality, and then NRx-101 that we think is a medicine that people can live with for years.
Okay, well, I was just going to ask about the clinical studies. So it sounds like you've gone through some and you're going to be doing some more clinical trials?
But in the case of ketamine, we've been fortunate in that, because these are hugely, when you talk about acute suicidality, these are hugely expensive studies to do. And none have been done in the United States. Nobody's been willing to fund them, but the government of France did. The government of France did a study or funded a study in 7 different psychiatric hospitals to the highest standards of clinical research, showing in 156 patients that ketamine was markedly superior to placebo in reducing thoughts of suicidality and depression. And there's been a complementary study done at Columbia University in 80 patients showing the same thing. So there are now 2 well-controlled, statistically significant trials around ketamine. On NRx-101, we're finishing a phase 2b/3 trial that we hope will confirm the phase 2 results that we already published. And we've already signed a partnership with Alvogen, a leading small pharmaceutical company, to take that forward if that trial is positive. So we're on 2 different tracks. One where we expect to ask FDA for a new drug approval on ketamine in the coming months, and one that's slightly behind, focused on NRx-101 for oral use.
So when, in an ideal scenario, might this be available to be prescribed to patients?
In an ideal scenario, we would hope to have an FDA-labeled form of ketamine available for patients by the time I hope we see one another this time next year. Day before Thanksgiving or the week before Thanksgiving would be a perfect time to celebrate that. And most likely the oral drug is about a year behind that in scheduling.
Okay. Well, best of luck to you. I mean, I'm glad to hear you're tackling this because it's just such a tragic thing, and best of luck with these clinical trials, and come back when you get some results. We'll do an update.
Thank you.
Thank you.